Hey guys, it's Brandon. So we're going to have some deep chat for those of you who are interested. And I'm going to cover a lot of topics, but they're all going to interweave and interconnect. On one hand, you can say things that, like let's say you ask a million children under the age of 5, what should we eat for dinner tonight? And you give them multiple choice, and one of the choices is ice cream. Most of them are going to say ice cream, okay? They're going to get really excited they can eat ice cream for dinner tonight, right? So what you have to understand about humanity and democracy is just because the most people want it doesn't mean it's the best idea. We all know that if kids eat ice cream over and over and over, they're not going to be very healthy children, okay? They're not going to grow up to be healthy adults, okay? So take this a step further. Take this from another angle. Let's say that you have, you ask people, do you want gasoline to be cheaper or do you want gasoline to be more expensive? All right? Most people will say, I want gasoline to be cheaper. Let's say that gasoline was free. Sweet. Let's say that to get your car to drive down the road, it's free. Sweet. And let's say that your tires are also not expensive. Sweet. You know how packed the roads would be with people if they could just cruise around all day long like I do? And everybody could afford to do that? So now, another question. Do you want to live in a world where the roads are packed with people? Or do you want to live in a world where the roads aren't that packed with people? I like it when the roads aren't that packed with people, right? I like to go out, drive, have the roads to myself. If gasoline was free, to drive your car from point A to point B was free, and tires were super cheap, okay, the roads would be packed. All the fun roads that I go cruise in the mountains, they'd all be packed, okay? Population keeps rising, okay? You say, well, we can just build more roads. Really? I think there's a lot of roads already all over the place if you really stop and think about it. So the point I'm getting at is there's the consensus amongst idiots who don't have enough forethought to say, how do I want the world to be? Not just for my instantaneous instinctual pleasures make my taste buds go, oh yay, this is great, okay? Oh yay, I'm having, sex with the hottest person ever, yay. Oh yeah, I'm making tons of money. Okay, all these things that cause the dopamine to fire in your brain. Let's just get back to just quality life. And once you understand that, there's basically two forces. There's the nurturing force where you try to help everybody out and help everybody learn. But then there comes a point where you have the Darwinistic pruning force, okay? So you nurture your plants, then you prune your plants. And sometimes you got to pull the weeds. That's what, in my observation, the world leaders are always doing. They're trying to set up systems and quote-unquote fair games where not everybody makes it. And they keep making these games more and more severe. So you look at things that cause cancer. You look at different kinds of poisons that could potentially be in foods, okay? How do you, the individual, rise above the bar to where you can stay healthy and avoid the poisons? That's what you need to be asking yourself. You need to potentially stop asking yourself, how are we going to stop these evil world leaders from creating all these quote-unquote Darwinistic pruning forces against us? And instead, how am I, the individual, going to rise above the bar and avoid being the one who gets pruned, okay? Avoid being the one who gets Darwinismed, okay? So, I know you're not going to believe this next part. You're going to say I'm full of shit. I've had these inventions for a very long time that I knew changed things on a massive scale. And basically, it changes the way that Amazon, eBay works. It changes the way the money system works. It changes all kinds of things. And I know they're going to be blockbuster hit websites in the blink of an eye, because it's like asking the kids, do you want ice cream? Okay? The answer is yes. Everybody, when they see how these websites are going to work, the answer is going to be yes, they want them. Everybody's going to want the monetary system. Everybody's going to want these things. Now, I mentioned monetary system, so let's focus on that for a second. Currently, I'm going to give you a brief overview of your monetary system, explained in a way that no one else has ever explained it to you. Okay? Very short and sweet, to the point, and I'm going to blow your mind. When banks, okay, first I'm going to tell you is the reason why they had to get off the gold standard was, and nobody's ever taught you this in this short of words, the reason why they had to get off the gold standard is because once computers were invented, they could create money, aka debt, out of thin air. Okay? They could create debt out of thin air. What's that mean? It means you want to buy a house, but you don't have the money to buy a house. Prior to the invention of computers, if the Federal Reserve wanted to do the current game, they would have had to print all kinds of money to give to the banks to give you a loan. And that money, those dollar bills, actually cost resources for the Federal Reserve to print all those things. Okay? Once the invention of computers came along and the internet and all this stuff, now the banks could issue debt out of thin air. They don't have to have the money in the vaults. They can issue debt, and that's what they do. A lot of people don't realize this. They basically say, okay, you want a loan for $500,000 to buy a house? That's fine. Here's the $500,000 loan. You owe us interest, and if you default on your payment, we get to repossess your house. So let's take away interest for a second. Let's just focus on repossession. If the bank gets to repossess your house, and you're not upside down on your loan, which is where inflation comes in, so that when they repossess your house, you're not upside down on your loan. If the bank can repossess your house, that already makes this issuing debt out of thin air a profitable venture for the banks. Then, if they can control how often, at a very controlled trickle pace, of who loses their jobs and forecloses on their house, now they've got it made where they have a constant stream of revenue, where they are constantly repossessing houses where they can flip them for a profit. Okay? Or they can hold them on their books and use them as Airbnb website or Airbnb properties, whatever. They can hold them on their books, and that allows the banks to, quote unquote, not just the banks, but different companies, it allows them to have leveraged to where they themselves can get loans to do things that they want to do. Okay? But neither here nor there. Interest and repossession. So the interest, you're paying interest on money, okay, on debt that the bank never had to work a day to earn. So the bankers and the depositors who deposit things into the bank, their money into the bank, it's not their money that's being loaned out. That's a lie. That's an illusion. Instead, because of the invention of computers, they're issuing debt out of thin air. The money will appear in your account. The money didn't get transferred to your account. You will find the money in your account. It's going to magically appear. That's the proper terminology that they need to use. And sometimes they do. They don't transfer the money to your account. So, any currency that has a fixed amount of currency ends the bank's abilities to play this game, where they can create money out of thin air. Okay? To where they can then profit from the money that's printed out of thin air via the interest that you pay them. And I'm not saying the world needs to get rid of interest. I'm saying the banks can no longer be the ones to profit. Instead, what happens is people would loan other people money to buy a house. It's very easy to set up a website where people loan each other money. Okay? So this was the original invention of Bitcoin. Now, I'm not saying that Bitcoin's a do-all, end-all. I'm just saying that's what original Bitcoin was about, BSV. Okay? If Satoshi Nakamoto is still alive, one of the most powerful things that he could do right now is transfer some of his Bitcoins to, basically he cashes out Bitcoin BTC and he transfers it, those proceeds, whether it's via a swap or whatever it is, he transfers those proceeds to BSV. So he sells his BTC and buys BSV. Doesn't need to be a bunch, just some. And what that does is that will start the escalation in the price of BSV, because everybody's going to say that's Satoshi tipping his hat that BSV is the answer. Okay? Now, don't get me wrong, BSV is an answer, but is it the ultimate answer? It's like saying a 1968 Ferrari is an answer to win at Le Mans. You can try to win with that car, but is it the answer? Is it the ultimate answer? And then meanwhile, you get the Ford GTs that came along and said, no, that's not the right answer, right? Okay, but the point is, and I didn't say the years right, but you get what I'm saying. The point is, I don't know if it's the universe gifting me these ideas or if it's just that I'm really smart, but I have these certain inventions that I've never talked about. I talk about them vaguely, but I don't talk in detail about how they work. I don't do anything that could violate the patents. I have these inventions that I've known for a long time, give the public what they want, to where the people who are doing good, the guy driving the dump truck, the guy farming the field, the guy building cars, the guy repairing cars, the guy repairing tractors, the doctor, the nurse, the sawmill, okay? All these people become the major breadwinners in this idea that there's this quote-unquote industry of financial people who are at the top of the food chain. They no longer have their bread and butter source of income. When banks can't just loan out money, okay, loan out debt, okay, at the drop of a hat to whoever they so choose, okay, and that's why the inflation has to exist, because the banks know that they're going to constantly squeeze people to get their assets to go into foreclosure, okay. They know there's going to be taxes. They know there's going to be all these different things that constantly get to where people can't afford to own their property. And so the banks and the royal banking crime families, they're trying to gather up all the property to where they own it all. They have these huge portfolios to where they own it all. And they're trying to have you not understand that it's all just a big group of elites that are gaining up all the property, all the real property. Okay? So BlackRock, Blackstone, Vanguard, blah, 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 blah. It's all just a big old pyramid that goes up to the same people. All these things own each other, which is even more bizarre. They all just own each other, right? But the point is, it all funnels up to where, in my opinion, enlightened people own all the property. And they get to pick which humans are we going to keep around and which humans are we going to get rid of. Okay? Other than the fact of getting crowded with people, that's a problem, right? There's also the quality of the human being. Is the human reasonable? So many humans, and I just encountered this in the last 24 hours, so many humans